You hatch from an egg buried in the sand on one of the Galápagos Islands, pushing up through the last layer of soil with your front legs until your head breaks free and the sun hits you for the first time. Your mother is nowhere near you. She dug this hole, laid you here, and walked away weeks ago, and Galápagos tortoises never come back to check on what they've buried. 3 siblings push up through the same patch of ground beside you, and within a few minutes, all 4 of you are moving in different directions, alone. Your shell is soft enough to dent if something presses on it hard enough, so getting to cover matters more than anything else right now. You start walking toward a cluster of low bushes ahead of you, your legs pushing through loose dirt with every step. Then something moves fast along the ground behind you, low and quick, and you pull your legs and head inside your shell and go still. A black rat noses at the edge of your shell, sniffing, deciding. These rats were never supposed to be on this island. Sailors brought them centuries ago without meaning to, and they've been eating tortoise eggs and hatchlings ever since, wiping out entire nesting sites before the young ever get the chance you just got. It loses interest after a moment and moves off toward the nest you came from, where 2 of your unhatched siblings never got the chance to dig out at all. You keep walking. You make it to the bushes. You're 3 months old now, and something else has been feeding nearby, a wild pig rooting through the dirt with its snout, turning over soil, crushing whatever it finds underneath. Pigs were brought here too, and they dig up nests the way you dug yourself out of yours, except they eat what they find before it ever has a chance to break the surface. You stay in the thicker cover, away from the open ground, because the open ground is where the digging happens. A few weeks later, you find a patch of grass that still has some green in it, low to the ground and short enough for your jaw to manage. It's harder to find than it should be. Goats have been on this island longer than you've been alive, and they eat through the same plants tortoises rely on, clearing whole hillsides down to bare dirt. You eat what's left. It's not much, but it's enough for now. You're 20 years old, and the dry season has hit harder this year than the ones before it. You walk farther than you ever have, following a trail worn into the ground by tortoises bigger than you, because they've been here long enough to know where the water still holds. The trail leads to a hollow with a shrinking pool of mud at the bottom, and a handful of larger tortoises already have their heads down, drinking. You push toward the edge of the group, trying to reach the wet ground before it disappears. One of them shifts its weight, and its back leg catches your shell, knocking you onto your side. You pull in weight, then push your legs against the ground until you roll back upright. You find a smaller wet patch at the far edge and drink from that instead. The goats have been through here too. You can tell by how little is left standing around the hollow. You're 25 years old, and you've just found a mate. She grazes a few meters off with her head down, and a male roughly your size steps out from the tree line to challenge you for her, both of you stretching your necks up as high as your legs will carry you. Holding there, waiting for the other to drop first. You hold longer. He lowers his head and turns away. You stay close to her for the rest of the day. A few weeks later, she digs a hole with her back legs, drops her eggs into it, covers them with soil, and walks off the way your own mother did. Whatever hatches from that nest will be on its own from the moment it breaks the surface. The same way you were. If the rats and the pigs don't reach it first, you're 45 years old. And something has arrived on the shoreline that nothing on this island has ever had to deal with before. Men climb down from a ship anchored offshore, walking inland with rope and sacks, and they're not looking for water or fruit. They're looking for you. A group of them finds you resting under a tree and flips you onto your back with a long pole, and you can't ride yourself, your legs pushing at empty air. They carry you between 2 of them, upside down, down to the shore, and load you into the hold of the ship alongside a dozen others already stacked there. Some on their backs, some on their sides, none of them able to move. Sailors have figured out that tortoises like you can survive for months without food or water, so they don't bother killing you now. They just stack you below deck as a source of fresh meat for later, whenever they need it. You stay there for weeks, then months, in the dark, packed against shells that don't move anymore. Between the 1600s and the 1800s, whalers and pirates took somewhere close to 200,000 tortoises off these islands the same way. And almost none of them ever touched the ground here again. You're one of the ones who does. A crew abandons part of its live cargo on a return trip, and you end up back on land, weaker, thinner, but alive, one of the few. The island you return to has fewer tortoises walking it than it did when you left. When you were born, something close to 250,000 tortoises lived across these islands. By the time you're old, that number will fall below 3,100. You don't know the number. You just notice that the trails are quieter, that the hollows that used to have 5 tortoises around them now have 1, that some stretches of ground you used to have to fight for are simply empty now. With no one left to fight, you're 150 years old, and your shell carries the scratches of over a century pressed against rock and rival shells and thornbush. You've outlasted the men who loaded you onto that ship, outlasted their sons, outlasted a version of this island that had more of you on it than it does now. On a neighboring island, a tortoise everyone will later call Lonesome George is living out the same slow decline you are. Except he's the last of his subspecies, the only one left after everything that happened to the rest of his kind. When he dies, decades from now, 5 entire subspecies of Galápagos tortoise will be gone for good, not just individuals, but every tortoise that would have ever come from them. You don't share his exact bloodline, but you share his island, his century. And the same hands that thinned both of your kind down to almost nothing, you're 180 years old, and the dry season arrives harder than any you've survived. You walk toward the nearest water source, but your legs give out before you reach it, folding under your shell in the open. You stretch your neck flat against the cracked ground and stay there, chest rising and falling. Younger tortoises step around your shell on their way to the water and keep going. There's no ceremony out here, and there never has been. Not for you, not for the thousands who went into ship holds before you, not for the ones George's line lost forever. Your chest slows over the following days until it stops, on a morning that looks like every other morning, with tortoises walking the same paths they've always walked. Sand builds up slowly around the edges of your shell over the following weeks, covering it a little more each day, until the island simply takes you back the same way it once pushed you out, decades later. Conservationists find the nesting grounds where tortoises like you once struggled against rats and pigs, and they clear the invasive predators out, island by island. Breeding programs raise hatchlings past the age where a bird or a rat could end everything, and release them back onto the ground their ancestors walked. Slowly, the trails start filling back in.